Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it may be when you are tuning into this podcast. I am your host and transformational empowerment architect, Tennille M. Jackson, and I am welcoming you to an all new creator conversation. This is the path or the podcast where we talk to various creators, or we delve into various creator industries, if you will. So whether you are an author, a filmmaker, you're in the music industry, or even publishing, we talk about all of those different industries, not all in one show, but if you are a creative or you have chosen one of those paths, then 9 times out of 10, we are going to have a topic that is going to hit you. And today we are talking all about publishing. And so if you are an author, this show is actually for you. And this is really crazy because sometimes the publishing show can talk about the business of publishing, but it also, as is the case of today, can talk to authors, because the question that we are, it really isn't even a question. I'm telling you things that you should consider before you publish your book. That's really the topic. Things you should consider before publishing your book. And so, right before we get into that, as I always do, I want to encourage you guys to connect with me across social media. If we are not already connected, please find and follow me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, or TikTok. And I am at My Name is Tennille. Once you get to YouTube, feel free to click on that subscribe button so that way, whenever I publish new content, you will be notified. And so, before we jump into the content or the topic on today, I don't know why I'm so tongue tied. That's okay. Charge my head, not my heart. But watch this. So I want to give you guys some background, first of all, as to who I am, right? And so if you've been listening to our creator conversations, one of the things that you will have noticed is that I actually am all of the creators. I have experience doing it all. When we, talk authors, I'm a national and international award-winning author. So I have been writing for a long time. I have at least 20 books to my credit between my own personal works plus anthologies that I've participated in. And so I've done that. I've done it, and not saying it in a conceited or arrogant way, but more so just factual. I've done it and I've done it well. I've done it to the point of being recognized again on every level, locally, nationally, and globally. Then, when we talk about filmmakers, I've been a filmmaker. I have created documentaries and docuseries, and my documentary, The Four Eyes of a Black Man, went on to become a national and international award-winning documentary. Then we talked about the music industry, and I've released two singles. I have not given the story behind I Survived It All, but I did give the story about my song Remembering. And even now, I still do some background singing here and there. So I am not a performing artist, but I am a recording artist. And like I said, I also lend my background vocals to projects here and there. But this week we're talking about publishing, and I am officially a publisher. I have been a publisher since 2014. That's when I first started my imprint, APS Publishing, and obviously APS stands for Artist Promoting Success. And I started the imprint the year after I started the organization. And so, APS Publishing, I have published at this point, I probably should have did an official count. I don't even know how many different authors I've published over the past decade. I mean, it's been a few. It's been a few, and when I'm saying a few, I don't mean literally. It's been more than two or three. I would probably say over the past 10 years, let's say it's three a year, and some years it's more. But I probably, and I never even thought about it like that, but I probably published over 30 authors, because I am an active author myself. and not only an author, but at one point I owned my own bookstore for about 4 or 5 years. And then, the organization doing tours. So pretty much everything in the literary world I've had my hands on. The point being that the publishing, my imprint, that was not my sole business. So you have some publishing businesses that they sign so many clients because that is their sole business. That's the main thing that they're doing. But for me, publishing was just like a piece to the APS puzzle. You know what I mean? So what my specialty is building the whole author. So if you want to know how to write, then there was the Writer Society, as it was called then. I've since changed the name, but I taught you how to write. So we had a space and place for that. Then, whether you wanted to write your own work or want to be included with others or writing community, there were anthology projects that I produced every year. And then if you had your own something you wanted to publish, that was the person, the publishing company. If you wanted to be published through this community project, then you could be published through that. But either way, you were still an author, and then that book would be in the bookstore. So it's like its own ecosystem, right? And so the point that I'm making is I've been publishing for over a decade, so I know a thing or two about what it is that you need to know, things that you need to consider. And that was the reason why I really wanted to do this podcast, because I feel like a lot of times people will say they have a story to tell, right? So you might be that aspiring author and you want to become a published author. And so there are a lot of different things that you actually need to consider. And I don't think that we really talk about that a lot. I think, it's always so much emphasis on writing the story and making sure that the story that you write is a good one, which that should be a focus. But if, and especially if you are going to either publish this yourself or pay to have someone publish it for you, then you need to be focused on more than just those things. There are some other things that you should consider before you publish your book, right? Because again, a lot of times the problem becomes once that ball gets to rolling. So I'm writing this book and I'm just about done. Now the tendency is to want it to just go by so quick, and you have not. And again, this isn't to everyone, but many people, if you have not done your literary homework, if you don't know the ins and outs to the publishing world, if you don't know the ins and outs to the literary world holistically. So if all you know is you want to write a book or you want to be an author someday, and that was the only homework that you did, then you want to watch this show. Okay. This podcast is going to give you more insight, things that you should be equipped with, knowledge that you should have before you publish your book, right? So this is not to discourage you from becoming a published author. If anything, the point, the prayer, the hope is that you have more knowledge, you're equipped with more knowledge about what it takes to do so, right? So understand that being an author means that, okay, there was this thought in my head, went from my head to being writing on a paper, right? Or if you type it on your computer, however you get it done. So now you have what we call a manuscript. Okay, so what officially transitions that into a book is the process of publishing. So first of all, let me tell you this. There's a difference between printing your book and publishing your book, right? And I don't want it to seem like I'm talking down to anybody, but do understand that in dealing with this for over a decade, I've kind of seen it all and I've heard it all. And there are a lot of people, even to this day, that still think that printing and publishing are one and the same. So what's the difference? Okay, so you might have your own printer at home. Okay, so you've typed up your manuscript, and think back to if you went to college or even in high school, those days where you had to write a paper, and so you got it typed up on your paper and then you printed it out. And that's exactly what you did. You printed it out. It's a little bit more to publishing a book than just to print it out on your printer, or even if, because I've seen people go to Staples or Kinko's and they print it out, like they'll make their cover. So they'll print out the cover, and because they laminate it, now they think that that means that it is officially published, and it is not. It is still printed. So if your work does not have an ISBN, aka an international standard book number, then it's not published. It's printed. Okay. Like your ISBN, the international standard book number, that is to your book what your social security number is to and for you. It helps to identify that which you have created. Okay. And so without an ISBN, it is not officially a book. And so those things, and I don't want to make it too deep, and I'm not going to make it too boring. This is not going to be a lesson about ISBNs, but do understand that the first thing that you should know is that you can, if you want to, print out your work, but printing out your work does not make it a book. So what's going to make it a book is having that international standard book number. Okay. Then some things you want to consider again is like, how do you want to print your book? Or I'm sorry, how do you want to publish your book? Because a lot of times we don't know that there are different ways that you can be published. So yes, you can do it yourself. Absolutely. You can self-publish it. You can figure out which platform you want to use, and you can upload your manuscript and go through that entire process. And again, I'm not going to go through all of that today. I don't want to like bore anybody, but I just want for you to understand that there are different ways. So you can choose to do it yourself. You can pay somebody else to do the work. And again, what is the price going to be for that? It's going to vary. Even when you look at my imprint APS publishing, what I was first charging when I started back in 2014 and what I charge now is totally different. Why? Because it's been over a decade worth of work that has been done, right? So when you first start, what it is that you're doing, you're learning as you go as well. And so as you start going and you start working out kinks and you start figuring things out, then obviously what I charge then is not what is going to be what I charge now, because now I understand the business more. Now I understand what I'm doing. Now the time that I'm putting in, my time is valued differently. You understand what I'm saying? So the point that I'm making is when you decide if you want to work with somebody, then you want to do your research and look at different publishing companies. And at face value, it may seem that all of them are basically doing the same thing. So you may say, well, how come over here this company is only charging 1,500, but over here this company is charging 10,000? Is the one that's charging 10,000 just out to get you? Not necessarily. It really depends on what it is that they are offering, because at the end of the day, price is subjective. But that's another thing to consider. Or do you even want to go through any of that at all? Would you like to have your work traditionally published? But before you just jump on that bandwagon and say, of course I would, you need to even do your research there to see like what companies that you're looking for are even open to accepting manuscripts. And then beyond that, you're going to need to solidify you an agent, because the bulk of publishing companies, traditional companies, they don't even deal directly with an author. You have to have an agent to serve as the middleman. And so now there's an extra step in that puzzle. So again, that's definitely one of those things that you are going to want to consider. So if you guys are just tuning in, this is Creator Conversation, and this week we are focusing on the I don't even want to say is directly publishing per se, because I'm not going to give a lot of information about publishing. If you all have questions, then of course you can put them in the comment section and I will address them, whether live or on the replay. You see them, you have a question, I definitely try to come back and read through these questions and address them as well. And so we are talking about what things you should consider before you publish your book. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But before we go into it, please make sure that you are already connected with me across social media platforms, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, or YouTube. You can find and follow me at my name is Tennille. And do not forget, once you're on YouTube, click that button to subscribe so that way next time that I upload something, you'll be able to be notified. Also, feel free to go to the website. My name is Tennille.com. There you'll learn a lot, not just about what it is that I do or who I am, but you'll know more about what I do, I should say. So you'll be able to see the various communities that I've created, such as APS. So if you are an author, filmmaker, a musician, anything that is in that creative world, and you want a community of like-minded individuals, then you very well may think about joining APS. But it give you all the information about APS, what we offer. You'll be able to learn more about upcoming events. It's so much stuff. Just go to that website, which is my name is Tennille.com. Now let's go ahead and let's jump back into the topic today, which we are talking about things you should consider before you publish your book. And again, I don't want to discourage anybody, but really the purpose of this show is to give you some knowledge, give you some things to consider that maybe you didn't think about. Because again, what my experience has shown is that many, whether you have been an author before or you aspire to be an author, the mentality is only about the book, writing the chapters, getting the synopsis, all of the things about the aspects to the book. I want to make sure that my cover looks good, and I want to make sure that the table of contents is right, or I want to make sure that it flows well, and all of that is definitively necessary. You want to make sure that you are producing good work, absolutely. However, your work is not done once you finish the book. And so what I want to do is give you some food for thought on today's podcast. Some things that you can think about, that you should be thinking about. I tell my authors, you want to think about the end even at the beginning, because many times what ends up happening is people are not giving consideration to what happens at the end. So you end up writing this book, you end up publishing the book, again, whether you did it yourself or you paid somebody, and then at the end of that, you're done. You don't have anything more to show for it, and you are feeling hurt, you're feeling frustrated, you're feeling in some cases devastated, like what was the point of going through this entire process? And so many times it's because you haven't done the work to understand what you should expect from this. You don't know what realistic expectations are. And so it's like, man, I thought that once I wrote the book, that was the whole job. And so once you learn that was the whole job for that part of the process, but that was just the beginning of the process, then comes the devastation. So what I try to do within the podcast, I'm just trying to inform you, but the reason for creating APS was to create a community, not just of like-minded individuals, but also have that mentor-mentee relationship where you can have somebody that's helping to navigate you through the process so you do understand pretty much from start to finish, not just what to expect, but like what is this going to look like, what to do, what, all of those things. And so today I'm not going to overwhelm you. I'm not going to give you 50,000 things to consider, but I do want to just throw out there some things that are worth thinking about, right? So, we've talked about how are you going to publish this book, right? Figure out that I've given you the three different ways to publish. And so you need to determine which way you're going to do it, because two of those ways you need to have some type of finances involved. And so if you're thinking that this entire thing is going to be free the whole way, think again. Because there are some things that need to be purchased. There are some, it's some other monies that need to be spent. And again, that's a whole nother show, another day, but just giving you to understand what is called for when we're talking about publishing and becoming a published author. All right. So yes, one of the things you do want to consider is how are you going to publish the book? What does that look like? But I want for you to think about this, like, what is the purpose of you publishing the book? And when I'm saying that, I'm not being sarcastic and asking the question, but again, experience have shown me that many times people have not given thought to why they want to publish the book. Okay. And so it typically falls, for me, what my experience have shown is it's typically one of three categories. Normally it's something for self-fulfillment, right? I always wanted to write a book and I want to be able to prove to myself that I could do it, and I did it. So I don't care if I sell a book or not. I didn't do this for the money. I did this for self gratification. Like, I proved to myself that I could actually do it. Maybe it had been a bucket list, maybe it was a dare, whatever it was, there was something in you that just said, can I do this? There's a story in me. Can I do it? Or somebody is saying, hey, you should, and am I going to take them on this dare? So there is some reason why you just want to prove that it's possible, right? And so there are many people that I've dealt with that was their whole thing. They were not looking to make money on this. They were not looking to build a name or a career off this. They just wanted to prove to themselves that they could do it. And if that's you, that is a perfectly acceptable reason for going through the process of becoming a published author. Then there are some people who are like, you know what? This is a legacy piece for me. So this is stuff that I want to leave for my family, for my children, for the world, like, so that way, even when I'm gone, my work will move on. And so that is a perfectly understandable position as well. And then there are others that's like, okay, I want to be able to generate income off of this, right? So whether it's a hobby, so part-time or full-time, I want to be able, especially if you have invested money into this process to make it happen, if nothing else, I want to be able to make my money back, so whether you're doing this as, again, just to part-time income, hobby, or, full-time, I want to make some money off of this endeavor. That's also a perfectly legitimate mindset to have, right? And here's the point. All three of those, there is no right or wrong mentality to have. But the reason why I'm bringing it up as what to consider is because all three of those mentalities have three different strategies of execution. And it is not fair to come into the game, because I have seen this time after time after time where a person will start out saying, I just did this because I want to prove to myself that I could do it. I'm not looking to make money. I don't care if I never sell a book. But then 6 months later, there's a frustration. I still ain't sold a book. No books have moved. This just don't make sense. And this whole thing is a scam. And all of those different thoughts and even outright statements that are made because your expectation has now changed. And here's the point: your efforts must meet your expectation and vice versa. So if you come into the game saying, I don't really care about making any money, then 9 times out of 10, that probably means that you're not setting up any type of events, you're not setting up any type of moves for yourself to make money because you said you didn't want to. And so, if at some point you decide that you're changing your mind, if you decide, oh, well, you know what, it probably would be good to make a couple dollars. If your mindset changes about your why, then guess what? Your efforts also have to change. So it's always best to kind of know in the beginning why it is that you are getting into this publishing game. Like, why are you becoming a published author? And so, again, if you don't care about selling books and it's just good enough for you to have that finished work in your hand, then that's great. Because a lot of people will leave this earth without ever having published anything. And at the end of the day, once it's published, that is something that nobody can ever take away from you. The amount of books that you sell that does not solidify you into being an author. Just the fact that you publish the book, you will forever be an author. Now, the amount of books that you sell could potentially make you a best-selling author, or if you win certain contests, you can become an award-winning author. But whether you enter a contest or sell a book, you will always be an author once that work is actually published. So that's something that no one can ever take away from you. And the same thing with a legacy piece. Like, if you want to be known as a particular, so say if you want to be known as an expert in your field, that doesn't even have to be accompanied by X amount of dollars, right? Because now you have this work. And so now you have something that is positioning you or helping to position you as an expert on whatever the topic is. So that's really all you need. If you just are trying to get fame or notoriety, you can just go out and constantly push this book on different media platforms, whether it's online or terrestrial, news, radio, TV. You got the work, you got the product. So now you have something that actually solidifies and gives you that credibility, right? So that's a different strategy. But then if you're saying, man, I want to make some money, you may never see the news. You may never have a radio interview, but you might go to every expo, every festival, every book event that it is, because you're trying to get that book moved. And maybe now you need to become more proficient in with your selling skills. You see what I'm saying? So all of those are different things. Like, who are you really beyond writing the book? Who are you going to be to actually get the book out there? And so if you're that person that's like, I'm a total introvert, I don't like people, I don't want to go in public, I don't want to do none of those things, then you really might want to consider, you know what I mean? Like, are you then going to have a team? How will people know about your work? Much less, how are units going to be sold if you're not willing to get out there to sell them? So I'm going to break again really quickly just to do a quick reminder to to everybody, if you guys are not already connected with me across social media, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, or YouTube, you can find and follow me at My Name is Tennille. And don't forget, once you get to YouTube, click on that subscribe button so that way, whenever I upload new content, you'll be amongst the first to know. And then, of course, don't forget to go to the website, mynameistenille.com. There you'll be able to learn more about the communities I've created, along with my books, my films, the merchandise, all the things, the upcoming events, and even ways that you can work with me. You've heard me talk about my publishing imprint, APS Publishing. So yes, I do work with authors, I do work with creators, and of course, I work with women. And so, if there's something that you've heard me say that you find appealing and you would like to work with me, then again, all of the information, everything that I do, you can find by going to that website, which is mynameistenille.com. And so now I want to go ahead and get back to today's show. We're talking about things that you should consider before you publish your book. And so the first thing that I talked about that you should consider is how you want to publish the book. Because again, a lot of times we think about, if you're a writer, all you're thinking about is writing the book. And you believe that, okay, well, my hardest job, the biggest hurdle is finishing the book. But if you are not traditionally published, so whether you publish it yourself or you pay somebody else to do the actual publishing for you, that means that once the book is published, it now becomes your responsibility to promote it, to sell it, to get the word out about it. Did you think about that? Do you have a fund set aside? Because you're going to need monies to make sure that that can happen. How much is going to depend on what all you trying to do, right? Then the second thing that we talked about is, what is it that you want for this book to do for you, right? So why are you writing it? Beyond, I have a story to tell. What are you looking to accomplish? Is this just something that you're doing for your own personal gratification, to be able to prove to yourself that you are able to do it? Are you looking at this as being a legacy piece for you, something that will live on even beyond you, something that you're able to be known for, whether it's within your family, your community, what have you? Or are you actually looking to profit from this? Is this becoming your business, whether part-time or full-time? Are you looking to earn income from this work? Because again, depending on how you answer that question, depending on how you answer that question, that would dictate the type of strategy that you should really be working with, or utilizing in order to do what it is you're trying to do. And so that's definitely something that you want to think about. And I think what goes hand in hand with it is, who are you writing the book for, right? Now, answering this question, it helps the during and the after processes of writing. So while you're writing the book, it helps to know who you're writing it for, because now you should be writing it more so from that perspective, right? So let me give you an example. Let's say you decide to write your story and you don't know who you're writing it for. You're just like, I just want to write my story. Okay. One of the things that I tell authors nowadays is that you definitely have to have a unique angle when you are choosing to write your own story, aka a memoir or an autobiography, right? And the reason why is because in the time in which we live, a lot of things have already been said, already been done, meaning like we're overexposed as a society, totally saturated. You know what I mean? Like it's not really anything new. Say about 30, 40 years ago, if you talked about incest, that might have been hair raising. Not to say that it wasn't going on, but people weren't really talking about it. It was kind of taboo. If you talked about being raped, or having the child that resulted from that, those types of things, even mental health to a certain degree, like those things were considered taboo. It was many things that as a society we didn't talk about out loud. So if this was the type of story that you shared, it was really interesting and appealing because people hadn't heard anything like it. But now you have to consider, you know, the time that we're in, and then you compound that with social media, how everybody talks about everything, shows everything. You know what I mean? Like there isn't really a lot of things that's considered sacred because we talk about it all. There isn't anything that people hold back anymore, for better or for worse. And so now, if you're coming out of the woodwork and you're saying, "Well, I want to share my story," what you need to consider is what about your story is going to be different or unique. How can you position your story that's going to resonate with somebody? Because to just say, I was born on July 10th, 1968, in Kansas City, Missouri, and I was born, my mother was a single parent, and I had six brothers and sisters. Like that's a lot of people's story. So what makes your story different? It doesn't mean that you are not different, but your writing style will probably be challenged when you're just writing a memoir. So you have to figure out, okay, who am I talking to? Who is this for? So that if I know, let's say as an example, maybe I do want to talk about the abuse that I suffered, right? And specifically, maybe it was abuse within my relationship. Okay, so now I'm probably going to want to target survivors of domestic violence. You see what I'm saying? So now when I'm writing that, I'm gonna have that in mind because they probably not gonna care about you was in third what school you went to when you was in third grade. They don't care about your high school prom. You know what I mean? So when you know who your audience is, then that's going to help you shape. And again, I'm not saying to lie or tell anything fictitious. I'm saying that you'll know where to start. So maybe it don't start when you were born. Maybe that's a detail in the story, but maybe it don't even matter when you were born. What matters is what happened to you, and then shaping the story around that because you want that to resonate there. Or if you were a college graduate, okay, what about being a college graduate? Do you see what I'm trying to say with that? Like, you got to figure out, who am I trying to target? Who do I want my demographic to be? Because when you're doing that, then if you write like that within the book itself, now when it's time to start marketing that book, you've already written it with that audience in mind. So now when people are able to see themselves in it, even whether you're trying to pitch it for media purposes, like it's gonna already be written that way, or you're pitching it for collaborations. So you want to think about who their audience is, because it's not just my story now. It's not just about me trying to tell what happened to me. You still will do that, but it's you telling about your story in a way that's going to resonate with the people that you are trying to connect with. And so all of that is very, very necessary. So that way you can kind of know, how to structure your book. One of the things that you should never say, and I hear a lot of authors say it, and when I first came out, I said it myself, because at the end of the day, you only know what you know until you know better, right? One, I remember being asked, the name of my first book was called Pleasing Your Partner, A Spiritual Guide to Happiness. And so when asked the question, who is your book for? And my young, naive self, it's for everybody. Well, how many of you know it's not for everybody, right? Because number one, everybody ain't in a relationship. Everybody, and if it said a spiritual guide to happiness, everybody ain't looking for a spiritual guide. You know what I mean? So it's understanding who your audience is, but also understanding that everybody isn't it. In the ideal world, would you want for everybody to read your book? Absolutely. But realistically, is everybody gonna pick up your book? No. And so we say it all the time, like when you swing to try to get everybody, most of the time you don't get anybody. Okay. So you want to be specific in knowing who your actual audience is, just like on this show. When I say for creator conversations, we're having conversations about, these various industries. So the literary world, so for authors and publishers, or like with movie, we're talking to filmmakers, or with the music industry, might be talking to musicians and singers. So like over time, it'll be me giving insight, but we'll also be interviewing individuals from these various industries, right? And so if you are a part of any of these industries, so if you're not from the music industry, then this might, if you are from the music industry, then a show on publishing your book might not be the target. That's not going to be the show you tune into, right? So for me, as being a podcaster, then I'm not expecting somebody from the music industry to be tuned in to a podcasting show, or on publishing. I'm not expecting somebody who's interested in cooking to be tuned into this. Now, if I happen to get those people, then that's great. But I'm not doing an entire show thinking that every single person is going to tune in. No, a show that's talking about things to consider before you write the book. It's a very niche audience in mind. Those who are interested in publishing. So aspiring authors, potential, people who've already published, so you might already be a published author, those who just are interested in the literary world. But again, specifically, it would be those who are looking to publish. Okay. And so you have to understand, and that's with any business, you have to understand that everybody is not your target audience. And so you want to, before you publish the book, even before you finish writing the book, you want to make sure that you know who you're writing for, because that will help you to shape your story, and then it will help you to share your story. And so I'm hoping that this podcast has really helped. I'm trying to think about some other things to give you guys, but at the end of the day, I don't want to give too much, because I know that a lot of this it can be overwhelming, right? Like if I go into all of the different ways of publishing, I already gave you the three different ways. But if I start explaining all of the three different ways and everything that's included in all of that, then that can kind of become overwhelming. And I don't want to do that. But I definitely want to make sure that those three things, if nothing else, that you guys would give some thought to. So don't get discouraged and don't feel overwhelmed. If you are looking to publish, you're wanting to publish, you've already started writing, and you're like, man, I done just about finished writing this book, but I don't even know who the audience is. So that's a great thing that you figured it out now, because you have enough time to kind of go through the book. I would say if you're doing it yourself, get an editor involved, like get someone to read over it for you, and maybe they would be able to identify for you if you don't know. Like, so if you already didn't have a thought in mind who you were writing a book for, and after reading your manuscript you still don't necessarily know who is for, then again that's where you may want to get an editor, employ an editor, get them involved, specifically a developmental editor, because what they'll be able to do in the ideal world, you get the right type of developmental editor who can read it and who has experience in it. So they will be able to give you some insight, not just to read it as is. And they might be able to, based on the way that you wrote, they may be able to say, oh, you know what, this is who you're really targeting, this is who it speaks to. Or what might end up happening is they might say, you know what, you may need to restructure this, and if you redo this chapter, or if you say it like this, then this is actually who you're targeting and this is the right way to do it. You know what I mean? So they can give you some pointers. And here's the thing, when you are writing, you definitely want to be coachable, especially if you've never done this before. Be coachable. Make sure that you don't have so much pride and you're, well, this is my baby and I don't want for nobody to tell me nothing. So, again, if that's going to be your purview, then whatever comes with that is whatever comes with that, right? But if you're like, man, I want to get it right the first time, then make sure that you do it right the first time. So just because you may decide, say that you decide to self-publish, that doesn't mean that you have to cut every corner. That doesn't mean that you forego getting an editor. By all means, please get an editor to review your work for you, and not just, for punctuation and for grammar. So aka a copy editor. You probably, especially if this is your first time doing it and it's more of a substantial book, so not just like a 5 or 10 page children's book, but this is something that is substantial, and you already might not have known exactly what you should do, because a lot of times we can feel when we rambling, whether talking or writing. We can kind of feel when it's all over the place. So you don't want to, publish a work that's not good just so that you can say that you published it, because now you're gambling on the fact that if you do a part two, that your audience is going to support you. And you want to make sure, you know how they say you never get a second chance to make a first impression. That is especially true for authors. Like, a lot of times we all do not get the grace to do it wrong and come back and get people right. I mean, now as you evolve, absolutely, as you evolve, because Lord knows the first book I put out was not the best one at all. But again, Grace and Favor allowed it to be an award-winning book. Grace and Favor allowed that entire year to be nothing but touring and being honored at different places, featured at different places. Um, but that's not everybody's story, And when I look back at it myself, I'm like, Lord, I know that was nothing but your favor, because just for what it is, my first probably 4 or 5 books, you could tell that I was learning. I didn't know, you know what I mean? So you have to give yourself time, but as you know better, then you want to do better. And this is just a last thing that I want to share with you all. Some years ago, so like I told you guys, I not just am an author, I'm a publisher, I'm an editor, former bookstore owner, and within editing, I used to review books. So pretty much everything in the literary world, your girl does. Okay. Now, years ago, I want to say it was probably at least 4 or 5 years ago, I was working with an author, and we kind of went back and forth. And I don't remember exactly because it's been so long ago, but this morning I got a text from him, and the text from him was with of this cover, and I don't know if you guys can see that or not, because I know it's probably backwards, but it says torrential waters, and this is from Cedric Nettles. And the reason why this meant so much to me is because he used a blurb, he used something that I gave him. And he didn't just ask me for a blurb, but this was like conversation we had. It may have been a feedback that was given, and I did not know that he was going to use something that I said as a blurb for the back of his book. And the blurb says the story is layered and the character development is incredible. Cedric's ability to intricately describe the thoughts and actions of each person is awesome. And so the point that I'm making is this is one of the things I do. I help authors on their journeys, various, parts of the processes. So whether you're right there in the beginning and you need coaching to actually get the book written, you're trying to get it developed, you're trying to still figure it out. I am a book coach. Once you have it together and you need someone to give you feedback, I am an editor. Once you have it edited and you're looking to put it out there to the world, I am a publisher. I do have an organization that helps authors to not just learn more about what to do, but also you are able to network with other like-minded individuals. And so again, that's why I say for you to go to that website. My name is Tennille.com, because if that's you, like, I don't want the fact that you may not know how to do something to hinder you from walking in your purpose and turning your dream into a reality. And so that is the show for today. I hope that this has been able to help encourage, inspire, educate, and edify somebody. And so, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Creative